Hello, today we're going to be making pönnukökur. Pönnukökur is an Icelandic crepe. It's traditionally cooked on a pan that's never rinsed or washed, not even with water. I don't have access to that, so we're just going to use a regular old pan. But when you make pönnukökur and you choose a pan, you want to have the biggest pan possible because you're going to need them really thin and you want it to be spread out and you want a big pancake. This recipe calls for 3 eggs, 4 cups of milk, half a cup of sour cream, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and half a cup of canola oil. Also requires 2 cups of flour, half a cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of cardamom. Adding the ingredients together is quite simple. You have to add all the wet ingredients together and add all the dry ingredients together, and then you add both of them together into one, and you have your batter. So we're going to get started by cracking 3 eggs in a bowl and whisking them together. Then we add our 4 cups of milk. It was at this point that I noticed I would need a bigger bowl because with all the ingredients I was adding, it was starting to spill while I was whisking. Now we're going to be adding the sour cream. Stuff's hard to get out. I use a spoon. You're probably better off using a spatula getting sour cream out. Now, not every recipe calls for sour cream for pönnukökur, but my Avi's recipe uses sour cream specifically instead of something like cream. Adding 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now we move on to our dry ingredients. First, start by adding our 2 cups of flour. A cup of sugar. All of our small powders like salt, baking powder, baking soda, and then at the end our cinnamon and cardamom. Next we're going to be adding the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients and mixing them together until it makes a smooth batter. Now, if you're paying attention, you might have noticed that I forgot to add canola oil, which I'm going to do right now. Normally you want to add this to the other wet ingredients before adding the dry ingredients, because if you do it now like I did, it takes a long time to mix it all together properly and get the oil not to be visible. And once you're mixing this, you should get your pan turned on and heated. And while you're waiting for that to heat up, you're going to want to put your batter into a measuring cup because it'll make it way easier than trying to pour it out from the bowl. Trust me. You won't be able to get it all in, most likely, depending on your measuring cup size, but you can pour in the rest later once you've made a few pancakes. Alright. So, cooking the pönnukökur on the pan. The process is a little tricky. The attempt I'm showing here is not my first attempt, as it takes a few times to get used to and to get right. You need to pour just enough batter that you can cover the whole pan, but not too much, otherwise it'll be too thick and be hard to flip. You also want to make sure you don't pour too little, because if you pour too little, it'll burn and cook way too quickly, and you'll most likely not catch it in time. And it'll probably also break if you flip it. It also didn't help that my pan was a little sticky today, and I kind of struggled getting them off, but I made it work. When you're cooking your Pönnukökur, you'll notice that once you get it settled, bubbles start to form. This is normal, and you just have to wait a little bit for the bubbles to begin to form and pop. What I did while I waited was get the edges off the side, because those were where it really stick, and I was having problems with that the whole time because of my pan sticking. Even after I added canola oil, that just happens sometimes. So you can, if you want to make sure your pancakes are easy to flip, you just get the edges all cleaned up while I wait for them to cook. And you can check to see if your pancake's ready by lifting up the edge and checking if it's very golden brown. This one's there, almost. It also gets stuck on the bottom a little on this pan. It's just an awful pan. It's the biggest one I had. And you flip. This is the color you'll want your Pönnukökur to be when you flip it. Once this is color, it'll stay this color for a while, so when you see it, you gotta flip it. Don't wait for it to get darker or anything, because it'll just start to get too crispy, because you don't want them to be crunchy, and then it'll also start to burn. And if you don't want to flip them over to check, you can also know if it's ready to flip by watching for the bubbles, because once they start popping, and most of them are popped, you'll know it's ready to flip, and you can just flip without checking. Once you flip it, they cook really quickly too, because it's almost already cooked when you flip it. When you flip it, you're just making sure the other side, the other surface is cooked properly. You're not cooking the whole thing through anymore. That's what it's supposed to look like after, and looks very good. Don't forget to turn your stove off once you're done cooking all of your Pönnukökur. And now we get to putting our toppings on it. I got whipped cream, blueberries, and skyr. I bought skyr for the recipe, and I told my dad about it, and he ate the rest of the skyr after I made the recipe, unfortunately. But I still got to try a little bit on my pancakes. And it's really good with skyr. I recommend if you make this, you get skyr. It was just perfect for this. You fold blueberries and skyr. It's a traditional way to eat them. You can also use whipped cream, which I brought along with me, if you don't have skyr or don't want it. So if you do use whipped cream, make sure you let the Pönnukökur cool down, otherwise it'll melt your whipped cream. Some cafes that serve Pönnukökur also serve it with ice cream, so if you have ice cream at home, or you ever go get Pönnukökur from a cafe, you can also try it with ice cream, which I'm sure would taste really good. Now we're gonna go eat this. Here's the taste test. Hope you enjoyed this video, helped learn something. Highly recommend this recipe to anyone, as it's very easy to follow along, very easy to make. The recipe for this can be found at the very beginning of the video, and it will also be in the video's description if you need it there. Bless!